January 3rd, 2026. U.S. helicopters descended on the presidential palace in Caracas. Operation Absolute Resolve. By dawn, Venezuela's president was in American custody, captured in a midnight raid that shook Latin America. But the real target wasn't Venezuela. It was Cuba. For decades, Venezuela shipped nearly all of Cuba's oil at subsidized prices. The moment Maduro fell, the U.S. Navy moved into the Caribbean and blockaded every tanker headed for Havana. Maduro was flown to New York aboard the USS Iwo Jima to face drug trafficking charges. The media called it justice, but what they didn't cover was the second move. Not a single barrel of oil has reached Cuba since, and Cuba had no backup plan. Here's what nobody's saying. Cuba was entirely dependent on Venezuelan crude. Not partially, entirely. Their power grid, their transportation network, their food supply chain, all of it ran on Venezuelan oil, and overnight, it vanished. 6 weeks later, the collapse is accelerating. Rolling blackouts stretching 12 hours across Havana. Gas stations bone dry for days. Families burning whatever they can find for light. Food prices exploding as trucks sit idle. The government's response tells you everything. 4-day work weeks, shortened school days, universities forced online, tourism shuttered. An economy that was already fragile is now in free fall. Then Washington tightened the noose further. The White House threatened Mexico's state oil company, Pemex, with crippling tariffs if it delivers a single barrel to Cuba, cutting off the last escape route. This isn't chaos. This is a strategy. Economic suffocation as regime change. It's a playbook Washington has used for decades. Iran, Libya, Venezuela itself. Starve the economy, collapse the infrastructure, and wait for the government to fall under its own weight. The United Nations Secretary General just used the word collapse. Humanitarian collapse for 11 million people living 90 miles from Florida. The same pattern that hollowed out Venezuela and triggered the largest refugee crisis in the Western Hemisphere is now being applied to Cuba deliberately. The question isn't whether Cuba collapses, it's what happens when it does. Where do 11 million people go when the lights go out, the hospitals run dark, and the food stops coming? Who picks up the pieces, and at what cost? January 3rd wasn't about Maduro's crimes. It was about leverage. Cut Venezuela's head off, and Cuba bleeds out. No invasion needed, no international outcry. Just turn off the oil and wait. 72 hours. That's how long Cuba has before the lights go out for good, and you're watching it happen in real time.